evening. I'm Betsy Sowers. I'm the Minister for Earth Justice at All Cambridge Baptist Church in Cambridge, and also a member of the board of the Four River Residents Against the Compressor Station. And we are here tonight doing a socially distanced and masked vigil along the Four River Bridge to remind people that Enbridge continues to build this compressor station, this fracked gas compressor station right behind me that is designed to ship gas to Canada for export, and doing so will endanger both the bridge we're standing on and all of the people who live in this part of Massachusetts, both because of the danger of explosion and because of the emissions that it will be giving off of methane and a lot of other fracking chemicals. So this is happening in spite of the fact that the federal court has vacated the air permit for this compressor station, and yet neither the local, state, or federal officials responsible have stopped it. So we're here to call attention to the fact that this is still taking place, and to ask folks to remain aware of it and keep supporting us.
Okay, I'm just going to get a shot of this scene, and then I'll ask you a question.
Okay. It's really loud.
It's loud. I see a lot of houses looking very close to here, and could you talk about the kind of communities that are around here and the impact it'll have on them?
Yes, over here in Weymouth, on the Weymouth side, we have folks that live in very close proximity. These are not wealthy families. These are families who, in many cases, have been here for generations. Working class, middle class families. And on the other side of the river, over there on the Princess side, you can see that there's a multi-story apartment building, and that is low-income senior housing. And the whole area over there is an environmental justice community. An environmental justice community means that the people who live there are one of three things, and sometimes more. They're low-income, they're people of color, and they're people for whom English may be a second language. And over in that neighborhood, all three things are the case. And according to both federal and state law, communities like that are supposed to be protected from having an overburden of polluters put in their communities. And because they're poor, and because they're perceived to be politically not very powerful all across the country, we find that the number one way to figure out where a lot of toxic polluters are is the color of the people who live there. And in this era, especially of COVID, where we're finding out how pollution causes people to be more vulnerable to COVID, and in communities of color and poor communities that are already overburdened with pollution, we're finding more people dying of COVID. This is an incredible justice issue that we need to remediate. A lot of us started out in this battle because of climate change. And climate change, of course, is incredibly important. It threatens all of us, it threatens the planet long range. But before we even get to climate change, we have the very immediate, very local impact on over 900 homes, over 3,100 kids who live just in the immediate area. Many of them already have some of the highest rates of asthma, heart disease, cancer in the state, because there are so many other polluters already in this basin. And yet, when the permitting of this fracked gas compressor station was happening, the regulators didn't look at the existing only at the pollution that would come from this one facility. And they said, well, that's no problem because this one facility's pollution isn't enough to meet the criteria of the legal criteria for pollutants. But that's, with all due respect, is kind of Kafkaesque because it's pretending that all of these other 10 or 11 polluting facilities aren't here, and that the measurements that we have taken with our own air monitors have shown the pollution here already above what should be the legal limits. So we believe that this is seriously an environmental justice issue, that people who are poor, people of color, people who don't speak English are going to be hurt first and worst by this facility. All the people who live in this neighborhood of any color and any economic status are going to be harmed. And then if this gas starts to be pumped in large quantities up to Canada for export, it is just going to exacerbate the climate change and the sea level rise that threatens everyone and everything on this sacred planet.
There is a very dangerous situation I've heard about, that they talk about blowdowns. And also I've heard that about plants, compressor plants exploding. Could you talk a little bit about that and how that might impact people with all the infrastructure around here, what kind of infrastructure there is?
Right. Yes, both as a regular part of operation and sometimes in emergencies, compressor stations have what's called a blowdown, and that's when they release all of the gas that's in the facility and in the pipes connected to it, immediately connected to it, all at one time. And this may be because they're cleaning it, or it may be because there's been some emergency within the facility. So it blows down a huge amount of gas all at once, which not only impacts the neighbors who have to breathe it, but say if the wind is blowing off the water, as it often does, anyone who lives by the water knows it often blows off the water, and say the bridge is open, this is a drawbridge, and all the cars are sitting up here with their hot catalytic converters, and that gas blows over the bridge. Just one spark from a cigarette or a catalytic converter can cause an explosion that could incinerate all the vehicles on the bridge, possibly the bridge itself, and cause a chain reaction explosion with all of these other facilities around here. The gas heating plant across the way, factory across the river, a tank farm right across the river. So we could have, and the sewage plant, the sewage pumping station is just on the other side of the facility that pumps sewage for all the South Shore communities out to Deer Island. All of those could be damaged or destroyed, in addition to hundreds, possibly thousands of residents and commuters. So it's an imminent danger. A similar explosion happened, I believe it was 2018, out in Michigan, when they had a weather pattern that at a compressor station that held the gas from a blowdown, held the gas down near the ground, and it came in contact with another part of the compressor station that was very hot, and it blew up. But in that situation, no one was harmed because that compressor was built out in the middle of nowhere, which is where compressor stations usually are built. They usually have 40 to 80 acres to sit on. This one sits, as you can see, in the middle of a very dense both industrial and residential area, which even if you were a fan of fossil fuels, which I am not, this is not where you would put one. And I'll also PS onto that this is a federally and state designated flood zone. And with sea level rise and the increase of storms, hurricanes, it's not unlikely that the danger could be exacerbated by storms and floods that could cause emergencies in the station and end up causing a serious accident.
Now, there's governmental agencies that are responsible for permitting this plant. Do you think they've done their job? Do you think it's been a fair process, that they protected the people? I understand that there's been a series of permits issued. You've been fighting for over 5 years. And could you talk a little bit about the permitting process and the Mass DEP and others?
Sure. That's a long conversation to talk about the permitting process, but I'll try to be brief. There's this thing called regulatory capture, which means that the agency that is supposed to regulate and control things like permits and polluters is in fact working with them and for them, and not necessarily with people. There's a revolving door of people who go, are working in the regulatory agency one week, and the next week they're working for the industry, and they're all friends, and so the questions, in my experience, and I've sat through a lot of these hearings, in my experience the question is never, should this be built? It's, oh well, this is going to be built, how can we make it a little less painful for the people that it's going to affect? Maybe we'll give them some money to build sidewalks or a park. But the thought that maybe it's entirely inappropriate to build the thing in this place is not ever really considered.
What about Governor Baker? What's been his role in all this, in the permitting process and the Mass DEP?
Governor Baker likes to say that his hands are tied, and that it's all a federal matter, and that there's really nothing he can do about it. But either Governor Baker has not read all of the rules, or he is being less than truthful with this, because there are a couple of permits that facilities like this have to have from the state in order to be built. And Governor Baker could have directed his DEP and his Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to take the side of the people and to enforce the state regulations on the books that could have denied the water quality permit, and could have denied the air quality permit, and could have denied what is called a coastal zone consistency review. All three of those, any one of those three, could have stopped the project, but no one at the state level tried to do that.
Do you think he pressured the Mass DEP to issue the permits? Did he pressure them? Did the Governor Baker pressure them to issue the permits, the Mass DEP? Do you think he did?
Well, I can't say. I don't know what the governor is thinking, but I certainly know that all of his agencies have pretty much rubber stamped this throughout. I mean, we did have on the air quality permit, the presiding officer at those hearings, when she issued her opinion that the air quality permit should go through, did basically say in her written statement that the process was unfair to the petitioners, that would be us, specifically around the piece where they did not consider the existing air pollution, and that perhaps the state regulation should be changed so this wouldn't happen again. So that was an acknowledgement that maybe this wasn't all what it should have been, but it didn't change the outcome.
Right. Is there anything else that's really important that people need to know that we haven't covered? Or I know there's a lot to cover in a short period of time, but what's the biggest, most important thing people need to know?
People need to support Fall River residents against the compressor station in our ongoing fight, because this is not over yet. We are appealing in several courts. We actually won in federal district court, but now Enbridge is appealing it. And there are several other appeals underway. So I think the most dangerous thing I hear is people saying, oh, this is all over. It's not all over. We're still fighting. We're still posting on our Facebook and on our webpage action things that people can do, and those vary from week to week. We still have legal bills to pay, so people can support us that way. But we just ask people to stay supportive, stay strong, contact the governor, contact your state legislators, contact your federal legislators, and keep up the pressure, because we are not giving up.